it was just about a couple of weeks ago that the documentary No Other Land won an Oscar. And the directors of that documentary, they made like a lot of news, a lot of buzz, right? Because you have an Israeli director. And then, of course, you also have a Palestinian director coming together to create a documentary about life for the Palestinian people in the West Bank, about the occupation and what they are going through. So they were all the buzz in the news. Unfortunately, even after winning that Oscar, you cannot watch No Other Land in the United States. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want you to see what Israel has been doing. Now, just about 48 hours ago, one of those directors was in the West Bank, was brutally beaten, kidnapped, and detained. The good news is it has been reported that he is now free, but we have to get into what happened to him. We cannot avoid this story. This is very troubling. Imagine winning an Oscar for a movie where you're telling, the truth about what you've gone through, particularly in the West Bank, only to be met with an attack. Let's get into this story here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that he's alive and I'm glad that he's freed, but the reality is this should have never happened in the first place.
Some developing news now out of the Middle East, where the Israeli co-director of the Academy Award-winning documentary No Other Land says one of his Palestinian co-directors has been, in his words, lynched. In a post in just the last hour, Yuval Abraham says his co-director, Hamdan Bilal, was beaten and was hurt in his head and his stomach. He also says soldiers got onto the ambulance he called, and there's been no sign of Bilal since. Our team is out to the Israeli Defense Forces for comment on those allegations. I want to show you Bilal here at the Oscars. There he is holding it. He's got the all-black suit on. We've talked a lot about this documentary on the show, No Other Land. It's this
So that's I just want to take you back. That is Hamdan here, right here in the all-black suit. He's the one that was attacked.
We've talked a lot about this documentary on the show, No Other Land. It's this co-production between Israeli and Palestinian filmmakers looking at illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank. But even with this huge Oscar win, it's struggling to get any distributor to pick it up in the United States. I want to get to Matt Bradley, who is following these late-breaking developments for us in Tel Aviv. Matt, what do we know?
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation that has really happened just the past couple of hours. And what we're seeing now is kind of a typical situation from what we've been seeing in the past from Safariyata, which is the scene of that documentary that won that Oscar. And as you mentioned, wasn't getting any pickup in the United States. And this was, a scene that could have been cut from the documentary itself. We saw according to the people who were there and according to other filmmakers who were there and according to Jewish American activists who witnessed the scene itself, it turns out that Hamdan Bilal, who was one of the co-directors, the Palestinian co-director, who is a resident of Safariyata, he was saying that he was attacked by settlers who were in the vicinity. They were masked. They were attacking not just him, but also the activists who were with him. These activists were from the Center for Jewish Nonviolence. Again, there were about half a dozen Jewish American activists who were recording this. They said, and Yuval Abraham, who is the co-director along with Hamdan Bilal, said that he had injuries to his head and his stomach. He was bleeding, and that he was put in an ambulance, and that Israeli soldiers, and we don't know if they were actually Israeli soldiers, there were people.
Let's pause here for a second. So he's going through the tell of events that happened to Hamdan. So one of the things that I do want to say here is a number of people are asking, well, why aren't they showing this in the United States? And I think some of you have said early in the chat that some of the smaller theaters are showing it because come on, guys. I think we know who's driving the bus here, right? Like there's certain things that they don't want people to see. So I guess like the bigger theaters have already been told, don't you play that documentary at your theater, right? So people still apparently have found a way to get around to watching this film. Now, what I want to explain is this. You have to understand that in the West Bank, the situation is a little bit different than Gaza in the sense that you have people running around that are settlers. They're not IDF members, but settlers who are posing as such and are pretending to be soldiers that are attacking Palestinians, that are taking their homes. This has been going on for a long time. So anyone can come up to you and say, get out of here, or attack you or whatever. And they can say that they're a soldier, but that doesn't mean that they're a soldier. The settlers have armed themselves. They've driven Palestinians out of their homes. They've beaten them. There's a number of documentaries and videos about this that you can find also on YouTube as well. So if someone approaches you and they pretend like they're a soldier, there's no guarantee that they actually are. It's not uncommon for that behavior to happen in the West Bank, where the settlers are pretending to be soldiers and they're not.
Who were dressed as Israeli soldiers. And one of the things, Hallie, about that situation in that particular part of the West Bank, and actually in a lot of the West Bank, is that Israeli soldiers or that settlers are deputized by Israeli soldiers, and they wear Israeli soldier uniforms, even though they are settlers. And I've been out there. They don't have markings. They don't have rankings on their epaulets, so you can't tell who they are. You can't tell what their ranks are. You can't tell what their names are or their numbers are. So in a way, they're able to do these deeds with impunity.
With impunity, there's no accountability for what the settlers are doing. Now, I want to make a comparison here. Imagine if a bunch of Americans just started wearing cop uniforms and just started pretending to be police officers. Well, that would be a crime, right? Why isn't that a crime? What settlers are doing in the West Bank, why isn't that a crime? Why is it okay for settlers who are not a part of the IDF to arm themselves and push Palestinians out of their home, but then people will point and say that Hamas they received arms and they're not allowed to do that? Does everybody see the point that I'm trying to make? You got to remember, again, in Gaza, there is no military. There's no military because there are not two states. You don't have two states. You have Gaza, which is occupied by Israel, and then you have the occupied West Bank. But the Palestinian people don't have a military. So their way of resistance, that's how Hamas came to be. They were a resistance group. So it's okay for the settlers to arm themselves, but it's not okay for Palestinians in Gaza to arm themselves. This is the thing that I've been saying before. There's a constant double standard. And yes, they have treated the Palestinian people quite brutally and disgusting. Some things I can't even talk about on here, but basically they treat them like they're animals.
They went into the ambulance where Hamdan Bilal was being held, where he was injured, and they came and they arrested him. And now these filmmakers and these activists don't really know exactly where he is. And so they're tweeting and they're trying to report what's going on. But this is, again, this is a scene that could be cut from the movie itself. So this is sort of, this documentary coming to life.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, so long story short here, he was attacked. Apparently he was being treated in an ambulance. And then he was, I'm going to say the word that he wouldn't say, he was kidnapped by the settlers. He was kidnapped by the settlers and he was detained. That's basically what happened here. Again, that would be considered a crime. There was a video here I wanted to show you that Yuval did share. The masked settler in the video was part of the lynch mob that attacked Hamdan's village. They continue to attack American activists, breaking their car with stones. Hamdan's location is still unknown. At that time, they still didn't know where Hamdan was. So again, I want to remind you guys, they were also attacking Americans. Now, you would think our government would care about that, but they don't, because they care more about Israel than they do about the American people. Check this out.
Hey, no! Can we go back to the car? Guys, back to the car! Back to the car! Back to the car!
Get in the car, get in the car.
Oi.
Get in, go.
Oh my god.
Oh, good thing this window's working.
My window was broken.
Whose car? I can't go. This is a...
So do you see how they were cracking the window? There you go, right there. There you go, right there. That's right, to who? Occupiers, not settlers. Good point. So there you go. This guy just won an Oscar, and honestly, even if he didn't win an Oscar, who cares? So you're seeing now that the truth is out there, right? Who was Hamdan a danger to? Nobody. I think we all can say that this isn't the first time that he's probably been attacked, but we can also point to the fact that I'm pretty sure the documentary winning an Oscar doesn't make people too happy either, because it brought more attention to what Israel has been doing. And you'll see this here. Luckily, he has been freed. And that's the good news that I want to share. No Other Land co-director Hamdan Bilal freed. And again, that's according to his co-director, Yuval. He was the one that broke the news. Again, Hamdan is the gentleman here in all black. And it goes on to say here, Hamdan claimed in a post to X today that their co-director was handcuffed all night and beaten in a military base. In an earlier post, the director said he spoke to Bilal's lawyer, Leah Samel, who conveyed the report of him being beaten by authorities. So they kidnapped this guy while he was being treated in an ambulance, took him to a military base, and then basically beat him all night. Sounds like a gang. Does it sound like a gang to you? Let me ask you a question. If people did this here in the United States, if they just grabbed someone out of an ambulance, took them to wherever and just beat them up all night, that sounds like gang activity to you, right? They beat this guy all night, and there's no accountability. There's no accountability. This is supremacy on steroids. If you know that you're not going to be held accountable, why would you stop doing what you're doing, especially when you believe what you're doing is right? Why would you stop if there's no accountability? It goes on to say here, in a separate differing account, the Israeli military said 3 Palestinians had been detained on suspicion of hurling rocks at its forces, and 1 Israeli civilian involved in a violent confrontation between Israelis and Palestinians. Of course, right? Always putting it back on the Palestinians. And it's never the Israeli, oh my God, the settlers who are doing this to these people. It says here as well, he recounted that Israeli settlers had attacked just a Palestinian residents in Hamdan's home village of Susia, were sitting down for the iftar feast, ending a day of fasting for Ramadan. So that's another thing to keep in mind. This is during Ramadan. The community was gathering to celebrate with one another. No matter when it is, Palestinians know that even picking up a stone could mean being killed or arrested for years of their whole life. The army watched and did nothing to stop the settler attack, and in fact, actively stopped anyone from coming to the aid of Hamdan and others who were under attack and were pleading for their lives. And then it goes on to say they had video of the attack as well. So the good news is that Hamdan is free. But the bad news is that this should have never happened in the first place. And also that there's not going to be any accountability for what those settlers did to him. The IDF has announced that they have launched an investigation, but I think we all know what that means. That's no different from a local police department launching an investigation of itself. Nothing's going to come of it. Nothing's going to come of it. People have to put pressure on these politicians because there were Americans who were also attacked as well. It's a sad case of affairs, but I'm glad there was video footage to show you what was being done. And I don't know how many more incidents people need to see to wake up. I don't understand how anyone can support Israel at this point. I really don't understand. I don't get how you can support what Israel is doing at all, This guy did not deserve this. He created a documentary with his friend, which is his right. And this is how he's treated. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.